Hey, what up, everyone, and welcome back to another week of the Gwentlemen talk show. I'm joined, as always, by Swim, who is apparently the meme of memes.
What? Wait.
That's what it says. That's what it says. We also are joined by Insangpha, who is the Korean free-to-play pioneer and also the newest affiliate of Team Gwentlemen. So we're happy to have you. And last but not least, some scrub called Merchant.
Hey.
Don't know why we have him on the show. Don't know whose idea this was. But,
Well, it's because
there's
no tier 2 podcast this week, so I decided I'd come on the second-rate talk show.
It's just like people might
tier 3 talk show.
People might just be missing you so badly, and you're like, oh no, I got to help the fans out. Just because there's no tier 2 podcast doesn't mean you can't get your merchant fix. And I guess to start things off, we should ask everyone, break the ice, that sort of thing. What is the best and worst RNG driven, because everyone loves to talk about RNG in card games, moment that you've experienced this patch?
Best and worst?
Yeah, or either best or worst, best and worst. Just tell us stories, basically.
So, can I go first?
Yeah,
go for it. Take the initiative here. My first time in the talk show, so... So the worst experience RNG was today, actually while on the stream, and I wasn't playing on monsters. I wasn't playing Unseen Elder. Basically, I was playing on Neckers and Harpy heavy deck, and the initial hand I got was 3 Harpies, 2 Neckers, and Roach. I tried to mulligan against it. I blacklisted Roach and Harpy in hope of getting Udra and Spirit. Obviously, didn't get it. And, I'm the guy who doesn't draw Udra and Spirit in the tournament setting, so... And in the second round, I got Roach and didn't get any. And I was like... I was just stupefied. I didn't even mulligan. So... And the funny thing is, I actually got a draw in that game. So I'm suspecting the player either is watching the stream or just want to get give me a draw for the hell of it or something like that. Either way, Mercy Draw is a draw, right? So I take it any day.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna mix it up a little bit by going with a good RNG moment. So this wasn't after the hotfix, but earlier in the patch, I had a moment, and some of you guys might have seen it. But I had like a 7-card hand, and I RNG discarded a Raider into Ceres.
Oh my god!
And I won the game because of it. Like I had to do that, and I won the game because of that. So
that's pretty crazy.
You got one merchant?
I for the past week or so, I've only been playing Bloody Baron. So to be honest, I think it's more like a prolonged one. But I realized 5 games in a row I played Sarah on Garal Ard while I had Bloody Baron in my deck, but I drew Drought every single time. I was just like, that was a relief. And the worst is probably all the times that I lost the coin flip, because when you're playing a Baron deck, if you lose the coin flip, you don't win the game. It feels bad.
I think for me, one of the best ones I've had was I was playing Nilfgaard Spies, and I went Vilgefortz into Cantarella, into Rainfawn, into Joachim, into Infiltrator. And I had, what's it called in hand? Not Leo, the other one. The one that kills the spy. So it was basically like the dream. I was like, it would be really cool if this happened. And then it did. And it's like, those are the streamer moments that you love the best, or when you're like, right, I need to top deck this. But then, if it's like, I need to top deck this, and you get both of them, and you just feel like a god.
Yeah, I think that's like Nilfgaard in a nutshell, isn't it? Like, top deck round 3, win game.
It is the dream. So we'll start with Insangpha, who is a relatively new streamer. I'm saying this right? Because there's a lot of arguments about Insangpha. Everyone says a different...
Okay, let me clear it this time. It's Insangpha.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's a pa, not a fa. You heard it here, Swim. For the
I'll call him that. Yeah, no, man, that's fine.
But how have you found streaming Gwent? What got you started with that? What got you into Gwent? I guess is the initial question.
Yeah, what got into me streaming in the first place is I was at a point like, what am I going to do with my life? and
So you decided
Yeah.
to stream Gwent.
yeah. And no,
Me
it was
too.
a serious decision because I felt like it was in line with something I wanted to do, and I took a master's degree in translation and interpretation, and it is a fine profession, but uh, is it something that I want to do every day for the rest of my life? You know, putting someone else's words into a language that someone else will understand, right? Like I want to put my own voice out there, right? I feel like streaming is a proper channel to do so, and what's the word? The language is power. So I wanted to get out on the scene, and to start streaming on Ghent, I was partly inspired by Stream and Merchant.
Oh.
And Merchant is my favorite Ghent personality.
Somebody
out there
likes
right
me.
And it's an
Found
honor to be
Yo.
on the same show today with the Stream and Merchant. And basically, the reason why I started streaming Gwent was Gwent is a growing game, and I trusted in the community and CDPR that the game will grow. And I thought that there is a room for me to join and grow as well. So that was a decision I made, and I'm really happy that I made the decision about 4 months ago.
You have to say that. He has to say that you guys are his favorite because you're here, just so you know.
Jagras, you're my
I never
favorite.
lie.
It's okay,
I never lie,
bro.
even on stream. I'm
I mean,
straight.
I feel like as your sibling, you know, you have to say that. But how do you feel Gwent is progressing in terms of the Asian community versus like Europe and like America, for example, where there's a lot of English speakers, so we kind of have a feel for how things are over here.
It's definitely slower than a European and North American scene, and I gotta speak on behalf of a Korean community. Korean community is sort of feeling left out because the localization is already done on the Chinese and Japanese side. It's like, oh, when are you gonna localize into Korean, right? So the Korean community is kind of waiting for that. And I know that hundreds of thousands of people playing Gwent in Europe and North America, and the Asia, the potential is definitely there. I mean, Korea, China, and Japan have a really big population. China mostly. So yeah, I believe that the scene will definitely grow. The game is solid, and there's a fan base here. So as long as it is localized well and it's going in a good direction, it's gonna pick up the pace.
So it's not like, what language do you have your Gwent in if it's not localized in Korean?
Oh, I have it in English, but I can do Japanese because I understand Japanese, but that's about it. Yeah.
I feel like not having the game in your language is kind of a big barrier for maybe players entering the game. Like that's how it seems to me. Like if I couldn't play Gwent in English, I would just be like completely scuppered.
Personally, not a big deal for me, but I know it's a lot of trouble for a lot of Koreans.
So basically, what you're telling us is that once it's localized into Korean, like Europe's going to stop winning all the tournaments because, as everyone knows, Korea is like the winner of all esports tournaments, and we better enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, the Koreans are coming. It's going to be brutal.
And obviously, we also have our good friend Merchant. How are you doing, Merchant?
Yeah, I'm good. Had a day off today, which was nice. Went to a Korean bakery actually, and ate a lot of tarts. So, yeah, live healthy.
Kind of want to ask you how many tarts, as if this was like a tart eating contest, but
I had a yuzu tart and I had a matcha tart as well, both of which were very nice.
What the heck is a tart?
It's like a little pastry with a top. You must have tarts. What's wrong with you?
it's like a promiscuous woman.
I don't know if we call them tarts here.
Well,
There's,
what
like,
would you call
Pop-Tarts.
like a little pastry thing, like a circular pastry thing with like a filling on top?
I'd probably call it like a pastry.
They're like
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. We're not very wordy.
Such a degenerate swim, honestly.
Like, do you really not have tarts?
No,
in America?
Well, I don't.
I'm
I think,
I'm
we
looking up
probably
what
do.
do
I just don't know
Americans
if we
call
call
tarts.
them tarts. It's Pop Tarts. I know about Pop Tarts.
Pop-Tarts
Do
are
you
not
guys have Pop Tarts?
tarts.
What do you think
Oh
of
my
pop? Yeah,
God.
we have Pop Tarts, but what do you think a Pop Tart is named after? They pop up and they're a tart. Are they a tart?
Not really. Pop
Yeah, they
tarts are
don't
not
seem
really
like-
covered.
No,
They
they're
don't
not
seem
really a
to
tart,
fit
are
much
they?
of the description, yeah.
Shit.
Anyway, as I was saying, Merchant. So you've been involved in Gwent since December of last year, so it's been nearly a year. You've been around Gwent.
October of last year.
Yeah, which is actually when the game came out. We got a year. So I guess a question for you is, how would you feel? Actually, you're just gonna start this is gonna be like your rant video all over again. By rant, I mean constructive criticism video.
Sorry, Merchant. Why do I keep saying Lurch in these? Merchant doesn't make rant videos. He makes it very clear at the start of all of them that he's not ranting.
Yeah, it takes about 8 minutes for him to make that clear.
But it counts that you're not ranting.
Right, guys. This is totally not a rant, but after about 5 minutes of me explaining that it's not a rant, I'm going to start ranting, okay? Right, let's go.
That's fine. To be fair, Jax, you just upload all of my videos with your voiceover anyway.
Exactly. That's basically what it is. And then cut out the webcam and then you're good. You're good to go. It's easy peasy. Anyway, so how do you feel about Gwent's progression, I guess? What kind of things have you liked in terms of the shifts of the game and favorite and least favorite? So, things like the gold changes, Nilfgaard being added. Which of the changes have been the best and the worst for you?
I think there's a couple of questions in there. I think, how do I feel about the sort of progress of the game? I think it's very hard to not look at your immediate circumstances, where I'd argue that Gwent's not in a great shape right now. But I feel like if you look at the long term, then it has had a good trajectory. I just think that we're in a rough patch, probably the roughest patch we've had so far. But in terms of favorite and least favorite changes, I think my favorite change, I actually think increased. I know this is one that a lot of people don't like, but I think increased agility into the game when it was a moderate change was a good thing, because I feel like when the game had little to no agility outside of Scoia'tael, the decision making wasn't really there too much. It was a lot of the time it had a very static playstyle because there wasn't that positioning factor in the game. I think the original positioning update shortly after Nilfgaard is probably the favorite change they did. Least favorite, I think they have removed some cards that I think were really fun, or steered the game away from gameplay that incorporated them. So things I guess things like Bloody Baron would be a good example of that, or things we were talking before this went live, like Vabjorn. I think that was a really fun effect. But it didn't quite work in the current gameplay. So instead of catering to that or just leaving it for the future, it just kind of got cut.
Wild boar of the sea.
Old. Yeah, I think that's the line. I think that's a line. This old wild boar of the sea. But I feel like some fun mechanics have been steered away from because they couldn't quite get them to work, instead of actually factoring them in.
What was old wild boar? See, damage to units.
If it's in rain, it puts a Clendyman pirate on the bottom of your deck every turn.
Wait, that was its original effect.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I ever played when it did that.
Oh, really?
A Demon pirate on the bottom of your deck if it's in rain.
Yeah. So you play wild boar, and this was. And then you play rain, and then every turn that's sitting in rain, you get an extra Clendyman pirate on the bottom of your deck.
And the best thing is, it doesn't even rain itself. You have to play it and then play rain on it.
Rain. Yeah. That would be such a good counter to mill, though.
Except when you play a demon, it would discard all the other demons.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because it's in rain, so you just get more. You're just constantly playing and discarding demons. And then somehow, steal a Grave Hag off your opponent. It would be glorious. So, in terms of the future of Gwent, because we've briefly talked about the past, what kind of features does everyone want to see? Your number one, I really want this feature, or I guess change in mechanic. We'll say change in mechanic. So not features like new game modes or that sort of thing.
Oh, come on.
Oh. Okay, come on. You can make your own new game mode swim. Just use the cop out answer. But what do people think? I guess we'll start with Insangpha and then go from there.
I want to see a mode that's somewhat similar to Hearthstone Brawl, because I think normal arena is great too, but a Brawl let's say you can only play a silver card, or you cannot play gold, to experiment with and things of the nature. And I think it'll be interesting. You can only play a female characters or something like that, like a challenge stone, or you can call it challenge Gwent or whatever. That will spice things up, yeah. And we already have a single player coming up, so I don't even need to talk about it. But definitely looking forward to something like a Brawl or Arena. Yeah,
I think that's a good idea, because a lot of the fun I have in streaming, for example, is playing dumb decks. And a brawl mode like that kind of forces everyone to play dumb decks, so then you don't have to have that situation where you're playing Baron on Pro Ladder, against meta decks or whatever. Like if everyone was playing all girl decks, or everyone was playing like only silver card decks or neutral decks, like I think it could be really fun. So that kind of thing I think could be really cool. What do you think, Merchant?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think like things like Battle of the Bards showed how cool stuff like that can work in Gwent. And I think like the game is so well suited to puzzles and like alternate sort of plays like that. I 100% agree with Insangpha, where that's just like such an awesome thing for the game to have. So I want to see more of that.
Yeah, and the Merchant had a show Weird Wednesday or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really great
Weird
show,
Wednesday. Yeah. Oh, I did things like that. I did like female only decks, bronze only decks. Everything has to go on one row, stuff like that. Which with Hailstorm these days wouldn't be very fun, but yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a new feature, Swim? What do you want?
I mean, sort of similar to that. Sort of similar to like a new mode with new rules. What I might like to see, and this is I haven't thought this through for like hours. There might be like flaws with this, but what I might like to see is something similar to the Codex Arena from Guild Wars, if anybody played that.
Oh, I love Guild Wars. Yeah.
Dude, you know Codex Arena, right?
Yeah. Well, I used to play like Guild Wars 1 a ton.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should
like. So basically, what it is it's kind of like Tavern Brawl, except it's automated and with an emphasis on deck building, right? So basically, how it works is every single day, every 24 hours, it resets the codex randomly. It just rolls a dice and basically picks a pool of bronzes, silvers, and golds for you to be able to use in your deck building. And everyone has the same rules. And basically, it's just automated every 24 hours. There's new, like, basically, it bans like 80% or 70% of the cards in the game, and you just have to deck build with what's left. And honestly, with this card pool, I guess it would be closer to like 60%. But I don't know. I feel like it would be a fun idea that has even more replayability than something with Tavern Brawl, and has even more, like, I guess, theory crafting potential.
Yeah, I think that's like a really cool thing. It's such a cool reference to use Codex Arena, just because you're the only person I've ever spoken to who's referenced that. But it's especially interesting because I think they actually said originally like it was inspired by sealed deck formats.
Yeah.
Like Magic and stuff. So
yeah,
it's kind of like a full circle thing. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think that sounds really awesome.
I don't know. Like cool. I unless I'm like missing some like giant flaw of it, and definitely obviously the idea needs tweaking, but I don't know. Yeah. What do you think, Merchant? Did you? You're talking about features.
I think. Yeah, I would like some sort of alternate game mode where you can play the game alternately to the current standard format. And at this point, they could put Crossy Road in with Gwent cards, and I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Second game mode would be great.
Just while you're playing against Mill on the side, you're also playing Gwent Crossy Road, just to entertain yourself.
If I'm playing against Mill, I'm playing the take a swan dive off my balcony game. But yeah, it's yeah, some sort of alternate thing. That does sound cool though. Like a limited card pool format would be kind of interesting. We'd need a bigger card pool to kick that off with. But for the future, that definitely sounds very interesting.
And this is why I said no alternate game modes, because I knew this is going to be the answer that everyone freaking wanted. Anyhow, moving on. So back in January, you went to Poland. There was like, this was the best, right? This was the best thing that ever happened in Gwent in my eyes, because everyone was like, yeah, Nilfgaard, they're going to show us some Nilfgaard cards. It's going to be the best. And instead, what CDPR did was invited a bunch of streamers to Poland, let them play Nilfgaard, and then made them play a game of Gwent that didn't show anything to do with Nilfgaard on a stream. It was the best. Everyone was so mad.
It was so funny. It was. I got messages like, "Why the fuck didn't you show any Nilfgaard?" And I'm like,
"Oh no."
Yeah, I remember that stream very painfully because I miscounted it to reveal.
Yeah, I was going to say there was. You got 2-0'd by a to reveal.
I did. I got 2-0'd by a to reveal live on my first time ever on a CDPR stream, and I got 2-0'd by a to reveal. And Berger was just like, "Okay then."
It was great because because they were like, come and showcase a deck for the community and show, your YouTuber prowess or whatever. And then it was like, and here's Merchant. He's
I was just like, prowess isn't really my thing, but I will comically fuck up for you if you like. That'll go well.
But
that trip was amazing though.
From that, obviously, some content creators have gone up and some people have kind of disappeared, as is the way of the internet. And recently, in your 1 year retrospective, you said that the only major content creators for Gwent on YouTube were Swim, who's here, Mogwai, and yourself, which I think is relatively fair to say in terms of size.
Yeah, I didn't mean that in like a disrespectful way. I'm friends with loads of smaller YouTube. Well, no, I'm friends with loads of smaller YouTubers, like yourself included, right? Like, I just mean in terms of like people who are doing it to the point where if YouTube wasn't so scuffed, it would be like an actual full-time thing for them.
Yeah.
Like that's that's like a myriad problem. There's problems on Gwent's side, and there's major problems on YouTube's side when it comes to that. So that's a very, very complex issue right now.
But then assuming that YouTube, sorts itself out in terms of all this demonetization and ad revenue side of things, I guess the question becomes, what advice would you give to the smaller mid-range streamers like myself? Actually, I'm okay with doing YouTube. I don't need your advice, Merchant. But
I steal all my videos anyway. It's fine.
I just copy your videos.
Jaggers, who was it who advised you to make your own channel again? Who was it who made you do that? I think it might have been me.
That is true. The best thing that actually happened. No, the best thing that happened was me and Merchant both released a what to craft guide on the same day. I actually released mine 45 minutes before Merchant, but because Merchant's a bigger channel, a bunch of like Merchant fanboys were like, "Oh, look at you making a copied video of Merchant! Like he's released this video and you're just copying him." And I'm just like,
"That's the problem. They're not Merchant fanboys. They're just YouTube commentators." Honestly,
it was amazing. I was like, "Mate, if anyone's copying anyone here, my video was up first. Like, we know where Merchant actually gets his content. But what advice would you give to streamers looking to branch out into YouTube, other than don't?
That's what I was going to go for.
Right now, don't. Yeah, but I think when in a dream fantasy world where YouTube actually pulls their fingers out their asses and does something, I think like when you're starting out, consistency is key. Like YouTube has been proven time and time again to favor people who upload at the same time of day on the same days. So it doesn't matter whether that's every Tuesday and Thursday or every day. Try to hit the same time. Like if you can schedule your videos, excellent. But yeah, consistency is really key. And also, like, don't put out anything that you wouldn't watch. I see a lot of people send me videos or something and they're like, "Hey, can you take a look at this? It's my first video, so it's not very good." And it's like, well done for trying. There's also the thing of like, well, if it's not very good, you know that you need to improve it already. So do your best until you make something you're proud of, then seek feedback on it, right? Like, I think would basically be my advice.
That's fair. I think people find it difficult to watch their own videos, like when you first start doing that kind of content and you're editing your own voice because you sound different to how you'd sound to yourself. A lot of people find that very difficult, and then they find it difficult to rewatch their videos. But it's worth doing to improve. Although the worst thing to do is then like a year down the line, like Merchant, why don't you go back and watch some of your initial like first videos and kind of, this is the thing, you look back and you see how much better you've become. And that's the same with streaming as well. So I guess I would say watch your own content, and even if it's awkward, try and make it better.
Yeah, self-reflection is key, even if it is awkward.
Right, Insangpha has to talk now.
About YouTube, yeah. I want to get into the YouTube scene as well because I want to expand beyond Gwent. Talking about my goals is kind of awkward, but I want to talk about English education for Korean folks, and I want to talk about the pop culture in general. So and I can translate the contents English into Korean and Korean to English, so for the viewers can see. So that's one advantage I have for myself, and I want to take advantage of it. But I'm kind of busy expanding Twitch stream as of right now, and it has got some attention lately, and I'm trying to ride on it. And once I feel like I stabilize and I feel like I can devote my energy to YouTube channel, then I will do so.
Yeah, I think that's a smart attitude. Like you know, like if you tried to go full speed at both, I did it the other way around. I got some traction on YouTube, then moved into streaming. If you tried to do both at the same time, you're just going to burn out. So that's a sensible attitude. Like nail one down first, move into the other.
I think it also helps having the multi-language thing in that you can target multiple audiences, because players like Raikou, for example, he's, I believe, Japanese, and most people does he speak English? I'm not sure.
He speaks a bit of English. He's replied to one of my tweets in English, which is very nice of him. But I follow Raikou, and I just use the Google Translate. It's amazing.
I'm pretty sure that's what he does. Japanese.
Yeah, it's so good. I just do the translate from Japanese on Google and read his tweets. They make no sense, but you kind of get the message. So.
But this is what I mean, like in Insangpha, because you said you could speak Japanese, for example, so you can have the advantage in being able to interact with a lot of different communities, and then if you can make content which caters to both, that does give you an edge. Especially with like Korean Gwent being quite new, you're kind of like in some ways like in Merchant and Swim's position back with closed beta. Like you guys came in before Gwent blew up in the way that it did, and like you kind of have that, I guess, situation for Korean Gwent because Korean isn't even localized there. If you can start making content or streams, what have you now, then
I'm sort of being requested to make contents and put on YouTube by Korean users. And because I used to do 2 streams, like one in the morning and one in nighttime for Koreans. But I moved my stream all of it to focus on just the morning time to the afternoon. So for Korean users who are working and who wanna see something late after their work is done, my stream is not available, so they would like to see my content put on YouTube. So I got a reply to that at some point.
You have anything to say, Swim?
I was actually thinking I was gonna ask Merchant what were you referring to specifically with the current trouble on YouTube? I don't.
Oh, so basically, I'm sure that we're all aware of PewDiePie and his love of using naughty words in videos and telling people to subscribe to Keemstar, which is his biggest offense. But basically, YouTube sort of turned their auto detection. So, if you actually want to know how it works, basically, YouTube has voice recognition software, and it actually creates an auto-generated transcript of your video. And if there's then any words that they deem like advertiser unfriendly or any audio they deem unfriendly, they will demonetize your video. So this, in theory, could work if it was only targeting things like hate speech and racism and tragedies and stuff like this. But it is a bit haywire right now, and it kind of just demonetizes anything ever. Gaming videos are like almost every gaming YouTuber's channel is getting demonetized right now because, of course, they have things like even if I say, oh, we're going to kill that unit, YouTube demonetizes it because it says kill. So yeah, and the people have done like one of my friends is a very, very big YouTuber. He's got I think combined about 600,000 subs, and he's run a bunch of like uploading tests on his channel. And basically, he uploaded things with like audio where things were saying kill and then himself saying it and then like imagery and stuff. And it all got demonetized. And so, yeah, basically YouTube's gone a bit nuts. And yeah, it's not great.
I was wondering why all my videos weren't making money.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
And then it doesn't notify you when it does demonetize you. You have to like go and look at your own video list to see, and then there's like this little yellow like fuck you $sign, just be like, haha, you're demonetized. And then you have to manually click like request review, but at that point you get most of your viewership in the first 24 hours, so if you don't catch it almost instantaneously, then you're earning a lot less from YouTube, and that's the issue at the moment. And
it's just the mistargeting. Like I run a good family friendly Christian Gwent channel and I get demonetized everywhere, so yeah.
Your family-friendly channel. Yeah, it's interesting, and you would wonder if YouTube would just flag channels as relatively safe, but doesn't seem to be the thing. Unless you're Jimmy Kimmel, apparently he's good to go with more or less anything.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Like the preferential treatment it's giving to like TV stars is pretty disgraceful. Because what do advertisers want to advertise on? TV stars. Hey, that's gross.
Anyhow, moving on from YouTube demonetization, but I guess talking about game design because
depressing.
It did. We just took a dark tangent. Yeah. But talking about game design, Merchant, you actually did some that sort of thing in the past.
Yeah, it went really well. Yeah.
Actually, officially used to do what Berger does. He used to be a community manager.
I did, yeah. Did it
back
for a year and a half, yeah.
For a game called Chronicle RuneScape Legends. May it rest in peace.
And for
I played that
RuneScape
game
as well. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I made that game. It was shit.
And then, did you do much in terms of game design? I guess we're going to talk about Gwent game design. So that's to introduce people to your background.
Yeah, I mean, in the expansion content, I would be specific because nobody ever played that game, which was one of the problems. When it came to expansion content, I was designing most of the cards by that point.
I'm not gonna make Chronicle jokes. This is not Chronicle. This is not Friends of Valkyrie. We're just gonna move on.
I have a Chronicle hoodie on. Look at that. There you go. That's a blast from the past.
But talking about, I guess, game design. This is just to everyone. How do you guys feel about number of factions? Because we had 4, and then Nilfgaard got added, and we got 5. If you look at Hearthstone, which apparently we're not allowed to ever mention on a Gwent channel, they have 9, 10? Are they adding a 10th? I thought 9. So, they have quite a few more. I mean, how do people feel about the identity of Gwent's factions and also the direction that CDP are taking factions in, I guess?
Well, it's a little weird because I guess the first thing to point out is that Hearthstone doesn't have leaders. Honestly, the existence of leaders is almost a little unclear. Like early on with Gwent, I would have thought that basically they wanted to take the leaders in a direction where the leaders were basically representing like ways to do different archetypes, right? But I mean, it feels almost as if certain leaders are just kind of more like cards than different directions. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I would see this game at somewhere between 5 and 7 factions, I guess.
So you think now to 2 more?
Yeah, something like that. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, it kind of depends on exactly how they want to utilize leaders, right? Because like either leaders are going to be, representative of like entire sub archetypes and like an entire like diversity of like a pool of cards under that faction, or they're just going to be like more, you can just throw this leader in anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. I think that's even visible in the game right now. Like, I'd say Northern Realms and Nilfgaard have the less static leaders a lot of the time, where you can swap them out very easily, but then you have things like King Bran or Kraken Crate for Skellige or Harold, where each one of them represents a very, very separate playstyle. So I think that maybe shows that both works. So based off of that, I agree with Swim. I think like I can see like 2 or 3 more factions in the game pretty comfortably. The main thing I worry about is actually mechanical depth for the core of those factions, because we've seen things like Northern Realms struggle to find a real core identity, and I wonder how you would identify new core mechanics for new factions, really.
And personally, I want to see more faction too. And if you remember, my team for TGI was then there was the 6th faction, right? So yeah, basically, kind of the reason I want to see more faction is the number of factions now being 5. It's hard to find the right balance, and you are always going to find 2 factions leading ahead in the new patch, and 1 faction trailing behind, and 2 factions like left behind, and it's gonna be the meta gets stale very soon. And having 1 or 2 factions that could like counter each other really helps out the balance and the variety of the game style. So I feel like Gwent needs more faction.
I think more factions are always going to be good for the game, right? You're always going to see a increase in players, but they've also said that they potentially want to increase the number of leaders to, I think it was like 5 leaders per faction. I heard at some point.
Yeah, I think they said that.
And I think Merchant made an interesting point that some factions, the leaders are very variable, whereas others are very kind of predefined. Like Monsters, for example, you have the Weather leader, the Consume leader, and Eridan.
Yeah, well,
like they have, they have kind of a bit more structure to them, whereas other factions don't have that. So then, I guess the question becomes: as they add more leaders, will they give more variety to say something like Skellige, where you have kind of set designs with how your leaders go, and maybe more kind of niche leaders to something like Nilfgaard, which is a bit more varied? How do we feel about leaders?
It's a tricky one. I mean, I guess I like ones that are supportive of archetypes, but those archetypes being flexible. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, for example, I like Bran as a leader. Not even talking about his power level. I think that's a little off. But in terms of like his concept and how he fits into deck building, he basically is for a specific archetype, but it's an archetype that's inherently very flexible, and there's a lot of different ways to build it. Whereas, like, for example, in contrast to Unseen Elder, just because less about Bran and Unseen Elder and more about discard versus consume, it feels like consume ends up being a much more rigid archetype. At least, throughout the last several patches.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like Bran enables archetypes, whereas consume is just like shoehorned into Unseen Elder sometimes. So I think it's that distinction between like healthy enabling and you want to play this. Well, guess what leader you're playing, motherfucker? And it's just like bam. Like, yeah, I think it's spot on with that.
I mean,
can I?
Go. No, yeah. Take it away. Take it away.
Sorry. So, personally, I want to see more leaders that the gamers which gamers can identify with, because a lot of leaders right now, we don't even know their backstory. I mean, nobody heard of King Bran or Harold before playing Gwent, because they were not really in the game, and most of us playing Gwent. Some of us read all through the books, but most of us are familiar with the games and not so much with the books. So, want to see some new leaders pop up that the gamers can strongly identify. I think that'll be good for the game. Like Anna Heriata, for example, for the Tucson, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, we have her and Detlef confirmed, so that's going to be really cool. Because I would like to see. I think you're right. I think that more leaders to easily latch onto as characters would be really cool. Because that's why I really like Unseen Elder, just because you meet him in the game and it's like you never meet anything like him again. Like this dude who can just like blink and kill Geralt is like should probably be a little bit better, but it's still cool to like have that recognizability for sure.
I think that's a really great point, because what I guess some of us don't realize, especially as streamers, where we play a lot of factions, there are a lot of players who just play one faction. Like, they just play one faction. And some of them just play one leader. Like, there's definitely players who feel really connected to specific factions and to specific leaders. And variety is always going to kind of help in that regard to find something that caters to everyone. The one thing I was going to say is you then have the risk, though, because some people feel very frustrated with leaders that are quite versatile. In that you have the Emir situation where Emir can be spies or Emir can be mill. And people dislike that because they feel that they can't mulligan appropriately. Whereas with other leaders, you kind of have a flavor of what's going to be played, so you can mulligan appropriately. Like if you see Bran, you're often mulliganing any sort of weather clear that you have, because in the current state, they don't really play weather. But with Emir, if it's spies, you kind of want to keep your deck thinning, but if it's mill, you probably want to, not hold on to deck thinning because that's going to cost you. So I guess, how do you guys feel about that sort of thing?
No, I mean, it's a very good point. Honestly, it's a problem that's not actually new to the game either. It's probably at its worst with Emir, but in closed beta, in a couple patches, like Dagon was also a bit problematic, because in a lot of cases you might because if you guys remember, there were some more heavy weather decks, and then there was just Consume, which just ran a single Dagon, and sometimes you wouldn't know exactly how to mulligan clears in that same fashion. I'm honestly not sure what the best solution is. I think it's really case by case. I feel like in Dagon's case back then, it was probably because it was too strong, the Dagon leader compared to the other monster leaders. And with Emir, it's more about how mill as an archetype functions.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Oh.
The general consensus is it's a case-by-case basis. Okay. Next thing, we have... Don't laugh at me, bro. I will fight you.
I don't know.
We have...
Merchant, do you think it's an issue from a design standpoint? Because it does create it does really exacerbate certain problems with these archetypes like mill.
Yeah, I think it's about... Well, mill's a tough one, isn't it? Because mill is its own... Mill is, my favorite. Mill is it's like a little bubble universe of balancing, right? Where most cases you're balancing things like efficiency or tempo and reliability, whereas with Mill, you're basically balancing how exploitable certain cards are. So yes, I think with Mill, it's something to be very careful about, especially concerning things like Avalak. But I actually really love Emir's ability from a design point. I think Emir is used in Spies to some really cool effects, bouncing things like Kelliak for more modular gameplay when you get to do more micro decision making time and time again. That's really healthy. I love that. It's just that Mill should fuck off, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where the chat's like, actually, Mill's fine. I have a 55% win rate against it. I'm like, yeah, great. I don't care. It sucks.
Insangpha, do you play Mill?
I don't play Mill. Personally, I hate playing against Mill. I did come across Freddy Babes in one of TGO qualifiers, and he was playing Mills, and I hate playing against that deck so much. And I did have to tech against Mill, Emir Mill, and Emir Spice at the same time for the TGO September. And that was really tricky. And the only deck that was able to do it was Monsters. So for my other decks, I had to ban the matchup with the Emir. That wasn't fun, I tell you that. And speaking of leaders, from a design point of view, I think Northern Realms leaders really need more identity. I feel like Swim said, Hanzelt is like a worse Liver Skull or something like that, or better Liver Skull or something along that line. And Fortress is just kind of like buffing every unit by one strength. It's kind of like a boring ability. And Rattlebit is like... and so, yeah, I feel like maybe the ability should be more spiced up to give the Realms more identity and play styles. Because right now, all of them play very similarly. Like, they rely heavily on Siege synergy, right? And I know that the Fortress can go haywire with the 35 or 40 cards deck. That's an exception, but other than that, so yeah.
Fair enough. I guess we should probably not talk about Mill for too long because Petrify, I did see in the chat, and he will have an aneurysm if this conversation continues for too much longer. So, for the good of the Gwent community, we'll move on. And the next thing to talk about is positioning, because CDPR have said that the reason they've added agility to a lot of units is because they have this change coming up. So the reason now you have agility in terms of the positioning of your units vertically is because some sort of change, we don't know exactly what, has been planned, and they want to prepare the community for that. So how do we feel about agility, and do we have any guesses as to what might be coming? We'll start with Insangpha. What do you think?
Personally, I don't really like the agility change. Like, every unit is pretty much given agility right now. And it sort of like does away with the Gwent's identity, right? And Gwent's core identity at the beginning, it was positioning and gold immunity. And now the game did away with the two of them. But I guess as a gamer and streamer, I got the trust in the developer, and hopefully it'll go in the right direction in the future. But as of right now, I don't know what they're going to do with it. So I can only speculate and suspect, but hopefully it'll go in the right direction.
Yeah, I think they're moving away from Gwent's core identity. Like, that's a good point, and it's something that like a lot of people are concerned with. I actually agree with the idea behind it. I mean, the biggest thing to realize is that Gwent is based on, a minigame, which was every rule of that minigame was designed for a completely different purpose, which is just to be a minigame. And departing from that is honestly probably necessary. That being said, it's really, really, you got to be careful how you do that, right? Like, for example, I might like to see something along the lines of full agility with preferential rows or something, which is a suggestion that a lot of people make.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's about like something that I see a lot of people like, oh, I miss Witcher 3 Gwent. Oh, DAE Witcher 3 Gwent is more fun. It's like, well, of course it was more fun in a basic sense because it was fucking single player. Like, it was insane. It wasn't meant to be balanced. It was meant to be this like fun mini game where you could build up like a superpower deck by the end and just steamroll everyone. So, of course, for the longevity and long-term health of the game, you have to depart from that. You can't keep that intact. However, like Swim says, you have to be very careful with trying to maintain the core identity of the gameplay. And this is something that we've seen diminish over time. Things like gold immunity and over agility in the most recent patch, although it is in preparation for something. Those have really been... Gold immunity for me especially is like one of the largest departures from the core identity of the game. So I think that I don't envy the balancing act they've got to do, because you've got to go, well, we have to make a viable long-term multiplayer CCG while maintaining the core identity of this crazy single-player minigame. Like, no other card game started from this position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's so tough for them. And I do think that they do, despite how critical I can be at times, like, it's all for discussion's sake. I do think that they actually do a remarkably good job of maintaining core Gwent. But I'm very interested to see what this upcoming agility change is, because I think that is the key benchmark that they need to maintain. If Gwent doesn't feel like Gwent after this change, whatever it is, that's going to be problematic.
But do you not feel that Gwent feeling like Gwent, there's a lot of things that make Gwent feel like it is? The thing is, so the issue is, like, the things that make Gwent feel like Gwent is this card, the issue, you get your cards, you draw 2, you draw 1, you win 2 rounds. That's kind of, it's core mechanic. That's the core basics of the game, and that's what kind of separates it out. You don't have this mana situation. We also have the lovely coin flip that everyone wants to change. So how many things can you change and then still keep the core identity? Because the way I see it is like the kind of rounds and the kind of way that you draw cards and the whole idea of card advantage and that side of things, and having a full hand and knowing everything that you're going to play that round before you play it is what makes Gwent different, and that's Gwent's identity. And all these other things are kind of superfluous. Like they're just like, they're extras, like the coin flip, like gold immunity, like agility, or like row locked units. This is all kind of superfluous to what makes Gwent in my mind.
I mean, what if the coin flip is part of Gwent's identity?
Oh no!
I think at this point it basically is.
Like, what if, like, I mean, let's say they balance it. Like, would it really feel like Gwent?
I don't like this timeline.
I mean, it's not gonna be 50-50 balance, right? But we are talking about almost the 70 to 30% disparity here at the high level tournament, so that gotta change. So, and I experienced it firsthand myself, so I know. So,
I think I had.
I'm sure Swimhead is full of it as well, and Swim tying 3 games in a row in that TCL qualifying. it was a stream. It was the best kind of epic, but I don't want that one on my worst enemy. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I made this point about a long time ago in a video I did about the mulligan before the mulligan fix, which definitely didn't fix the mulligan. But anyway, it was. Yeah, before then I said, like, you don't have to... Gwent is so... And it's what you said, Jaggerus, about... Gwent has such a powerful core identity that there's so much stuff that can be changed because it's superfluous, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't need to make obtuse mechanics like the current mulligan system for the sake of keeping Gwent unique, because Gwent is so unique anyway. So I think you make a very strong point of, like, you can change a lot and Gwent will still be Gwent. I mean, I think, like, if you survived making golds non-immune... That's a pretty big change to Gwent's identity. So I'm not too worried, but I do think there will be a line where it's like, this is the Witcher card game, this is no longer Gwent. But I don't think they'll cross that line. I think, like, you've got guys there like Rafal and stuff who've been around Gwent since the very beginning, and I don't think they want to see it depart from the core identity. So it's not something that I worry about too much.
Awesome. Right. The last thing I guess we're going to talk about on game design is Northern Realms. Since they've been nerfed, they kind of become a little bit this kind of RNG fest. You talked about them not having an identity. I mean, I had the situation where I played I played Dijkstra. I got a Reaver Scout with no target, and then Stennis into a Reaver Scout with no target. It was really, really depressing. And a lot of they just seem very high rolly at the moment. If you want to play them. So I guess in terms of game design, the question here is just talking about kind of identity of decks and what kind of options there are for Northern Realms. Like, how can you, because they played around with this armor kind of idea, and they have this kind of machines thing going on to an extent, but how do you give Northern Realms an identity similar to the other factions, which I think are relatively clear-cut?
Well, I think the first thing is that both of what you mentioned, which is armor and machines, do not feel like all-in archetypes that like allow you to build a deck entirely around that. Like we've seen armor but it's not really a deck built around the idea of armor. It's a deck built around a lot of different ideas, and it uses high-value armor packages like Stennis, Shawnee, and Heavy Cavalry, etc. to work. Machines are the same way. There's no like machine deck. It's just like high-value packages. You use crewmen, you use machines, and the thing both of those archetypes are missing are cards that really incentivize you to run more of that kind of mechanic, right? Like Ceres is a fantastic example of an enabler. Without Ceres, something like my brand deck, like I honestly stopped running Warmongers and Raiders and maybe even Freyas as well. Like Ceres kind of makes that deck what it is. You need a kind of card that gives you an incentive to do an action over and over again. And that's tricky because, of course, if you design that kind of poorly, then it cannot be great, doing the same action over and over again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like you look at archetypes, I'm not talking from a balance perspective, I'm talking from an identity perspective. You look at archetypes that have a strong archetype, like Reveal, they have spotters, they encourage you to reveal cards over and over, or they used to. You have Double Thunder Protectors for Spell Scoia'tael, right? Like, you have, like Ceres for King Bran. That's what Northern Realms doesn't have for anything. It has, like, I feel like Northern Realms will be backed into this corner of like, oh, we kind of failed to establish a factional identity here, so let's give them power spiking cards like, DJ Extra, like Stennis. It's like they're substituting a strong factional identity for Northern Realms with high rolling, which is, you can have factions or colors in other card games that rely on a little bit of high rolling, but Northern Realms, I'd say, is taking the piss at this point. Unless you play Bloody Baron like me. Best archetype in the world.
And
most fun.
I personally think it needs some sort of overhaul, but I'm not so sure. It's kind of weird because before the patch, everybody played Northern Realms in the tournament. It was literally the most played faction out there. Everybody was playing Armor Deck. Everybody was playing Radovid or Hanselt Armor Variant. Then the tournament after the patch, nobody played Northern Realms. Everybody played Skellige. So it's kind of crazy how the most played faction goes to the least played faction. The least played faction goes to vice versa. And I think it has to start with from the top to bottom approach. Like the leader needs some work or rework, I feel, and maybe go from there. And and also it doesn't really have a popular gold outside of Joe Natalis and Shani and Dijkstra. So having another gold or card that with some sort of ability that could add more variety, and then the Northern Realms would be stale. So that's how I feel.
You know what I'd love to see?
Go on, what would you love to see?
Oh, I was just thinking I'd love to see more Bloody Baron support. Like, in addition to maybe some like tools for the card itself. Like, I'm sure some people are, in the camp of changing its numbers or, giving it back some form of immunity. What I would like to see is some card sort of like emissary in some way. And I don't know actually the Witcher lore. I don't know if like some like one of little bronze spy unit would fit their flavor. But I think it'd be cool to have like some kind of direct support, because I mean I don't know. Bloody Baron represents the kind of card that can really empower an entire archetype like Ceres.
I think low key, like when coin flip is addressed, if the addressing is decent, Bloody Baron will actually get a huge buff from that, because I can scrape like an over 50% win rate on a Baron deck going second. Going first, win rate is like 25%. So I think that, honestly, like when coin flip's addressed, you'll see a lot more archetypes kind of start to creep out of the woodwork. But I would love to see... I'd love to see a couple of things in Northern Realms. I feel like any faction needs a couple of playstyles to be encouraged in order to be healthy. I think long-term like investment is one for Northern Realms. When you look at things like Temerian Drummers and Reinforced Trebuchets, they have a kind of like ticking snowball tempo that very few other archetypes do, really. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see, some more cards to encourage you slowly building up tempo over a round. And other than that, I'd like to see like Punisher Radovid. helped because I love playing Control, man. Like, as long as Control is interactive, like, I think the best card that they've added to Gwent recently in terms of health of the game, I think, was Farseer, because it turned an uninteractive archetype into one where all of a sudden you actually had things to play against.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see like some more interactive control options introduced for Radovid as well.
I think those are good ideas. I definitely think Northern Realms is a bit of a weird one. For me, the way I kind of look at Northern Realms, having started playing The Witcher and stuff, is Northern Realms, they kind of feel like they have this identity in the game in terms of the different areas. You know, you have the Kaedweni, you have the Redanians, you have the Temeria. That's what matters, as Roche loves to tell us time and time again. But that identity doesn't really carry that much over into Gwent. So for me, I would kind of like to see some options for more kind of family-based decks in terms of like Redanian decks or Kaedweni decks or Temerian decks, for example, and having synergies between different cards within that and giving them a bit more of an army feel, in that you have this kind of cohesion of the different units from a specific army in a specific area. And that's maybe something that they could go down, is looking into their identity being based on armies and families in ways that I don't think is that prevalent in other decks. You know, like you have some of these tags like the Draconid tag, for example, and Wyverns and that, but they don't really have any real place in Gwent, and that's maybe something that could happen for Northern Realms. That's just
I think that's an interesting idea. Tribal gameplay is really fun across like all card games ever. But in Gwent so far, tribal tags have largely been used as a nerf. So if you look at things like Northern Realms, okay, you know, reinforcement, you can't pull Thailor anymore because he's not an officer. They've normally been used as nerfs, same like Clan Tosak veterans. You know, they gave all the Skellige cards their respective clan tags so that it wouldn't buff everything. I would like to see it used, in a more positive way. Something to encourage like tribal gameplay would be really cool across. It can fit into every faction, really. Maybe not like, it doesn't really fit into like Nilfgaard or Scoia'tael Hell, but there's no reason why tribal shouldn't be prevalent for a few factions, because you can do different things with it, which is fun.
I think with the more units being introduced, sorry, did I just...
No, go, man. No, it's
so hard to get the timing right. So I'm a newbie here, so I'm Talkshow noob. So basically, I mean, with the more units being introduced, I think the tribal play is gonna see more relevance, and I kind of like I really love the idea of the Dragon Saskia, right? What's his name? Synthesis or something like that?
Synthesis, yeah.
Yeah, it gets extras from both dwarves and elves, and maintaining that balance of maximizing it, really maximize the potential of that card. And I want to see more cards of those nature, where you need to balance using a different factions or tribes over the other and things of the nature. So, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think Dragros brings up a really good point. Like, Northern Realms, from a lore perspective, is the faction that should kind of have the most established archetypes, and it kind of, like, you know, from a mechanics perspective at least. So going down that road and like enabling these like tag-based archetypes would be really cool.
Sounds good. It's always okay to interrupt Swim, unless Dale is here, in which case we interrupt Dale. This is like how the podcast works. Like,
we have a pecking order.
Exactly, but because Dale's not here, we can't interrupt him, so Swim will have to do.
Yeah, so, I'm the bottom.
Moving on to, I guess, talking briefly about future content, we know that in approximately 11 days, end of the month, 12 days, we will see 21 new cards, and also potentially a Halloween-themed event. So in terms of the new cards, we've obviously seen Hattori, but how would people like to see these split in terms of by faction and by gold, silver, bronze? So, you know, maybe 1 for neutral, 5 for neutral, 3 for each faction. And then there's also this extra Skellige card that they've mentioned. You know, what kind of distributions are people hoping to see?
Oh, I don't want to see any neutral cards. I think fuck neutral cards. They're boring. I think like every Gwent neutral pool is already a problem. You have insane toolbox things in there. Things like Doric Array is obviously like problem of the month. But, you know, even when you extend beyond that, you have things like Artifact Compression waiting for a base strength meta to arrive. You have Royal Decree. You have Renew. Like, you have amazing toolbox things in neutral. And it's like, this is insane. Like, this is way too many stuff to be neutral. So I don't know. I want to see I would call cards. Somebody in the chat just said Avalak. Yeah, cards like Avalak being in neutral. Like, I would like to see factional gameplay prioritized with some new cards. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. The current neutral pool is a little bit weird. Cards are either kind of like you're saying and just kind of maybe a bit of a problem, or they're maybe kind of awful. I mean, the majority of neutral cards are...
That's horrible.
Yeah, pretty hard to play, and that's without any units. Yeah, no, I definitely, if I had to pick, I would probably have a majority of the cards be bronze. I don't know. I'm basically just in favor of bronze all the way. I know last update, we got a bunch of bronzes. We got 25 out of 30 card bronzes, and it didn't even necessarily solve that much in terms of diversity. But I feel like if they're skewed a little more towards empowering new archetypes, they can really go a long way.
Yep.
And okay. I kind of want to see more gold, and I want to see resurgence of gold cards with the ongoing effect, like old trees and control anything of that nature. And I know those cards are not really being played because of the gold immunity is being gone, but I just kind of miss the old days where all the gold cards are kind of viable. Now it is no longer that the case, and if the game somehow can evolve into a direction where those cards can be used, that I think maybe if a new cards can somehow manage that'd be really great. And also maybe it'd be cool to see a tech card that kills a carryable unit, right? Because right now the factions that can reliably get carryable units over are really leading, and carryover faction has always been strong in throughout the Gwent history, so maybe some tech card to fight against them might be an interesting idea.
I didn't think of that. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, that's really cool. Kind of like I'm going to mention the game which must not be named, but like Blood Knight in Hearthstone, where the more units with Divine Shield, the stronger it gets. It'd be cool if there was like a unit where if your opponent has resilience units, it absorbs that and buffs itself.
Oh,
I was thinking, and maybe like there's another way you could do this, which is a card with a Death Wish, like maybe like sort of like the Guardian and Nilfgaard, a card with a Death Wish that says like
wipe the resiliency.
Well, no. I was actually thinking like damage cards such that it'd have to be done in a specific way. I mean, so right now, for example, there's like Triss Butterfly and Yenkon have a Death Wish with the contingency of this needs to be killed during the opponent's turn. So maybe like a Death Wish with the contingency of like if it died between rounds, wipe the opponent's board or something like that. And of course the priority would be set such that it died, after the like carryover actually happened. I don't know. There's a few different ways you could play with that idea of like attacking against carryover, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that'd be cool. More tech cards would be fun in general. The problem is with how hyper efficient decks run in Gwent, including them is always risky. Like, you already see tech choices relatively rarely because proactive gameplay is favored. So, like, look at Orcs, right? Like, Orcs is a super powerful card. You still don't see him that much because he's sometimes dead. And when a card's sometimes dead, it's not an incentive to play it. So, yeah, I would like to see, I think Insangpha's completely right, though. I'd like to see some sort of tech against carryover. That would be really cool.
I think that you should click your heels together and say there's no place like Hearthstone 3 times. Forward that on to someone else, or the Blizzard, I don't know, demons will come and get you in your sleep. If you remember to email this to all your friends. I think that part of me wants to see 20 new neutral cards, if only because then my neutral deck will benefit. I have this like neutral deck that I like to edit every patch, and then it's basically for those players who don't know what faction to play. You can play literally any faction with this deck. If you get bored of Northern Realms, that's fine, just change your leader. So if we got new neutral cards, that would maybe help with that, but I don't see it happening. I agree that neutral cards are they're kind of too powerful in a lot of ways, as has been mentioned. I agree with Insangpha that I would like to see more golds as opposed to Merchant who wants only bronzes.
That was Swim.
Because
that was me,
not
yeah.
Merchant, Swim.
You're getting your
no.
degenerates mixed up. Come on.
I know. This is Chad's so busy telling me that you're both at each other's throats. So as far as I'm concerned, you're the same person.
Oh,
but
man.
basically, I think more golds would be good, and I think more golds which have active effects, like Insangpha said, would be nice, along with maybe some buffs to stuff like Siri and Yen, Conj and Trispa, and those kind of cards. Maybe not Baron, because Merchant's clearly shown that after being Adzakov, that it is the top tier deck to play on the pro ladder. But maybe some buffs to those cards in order to make them more viable, because I think in helping those cards, you'll also help the diversity of the game. Because you're at the moment, the gold pool is really quite limited in some factions, and that's why maybe people are more drawn to running neutrals. So these are the kind of things that maybe would be cool to see, but we won't know until obviously later on in the month, or the end of the month. And then I guess the last thing to quickly touch on is the Halloween event. So what did we like about the beer fest, the ale fest, and what would we like to see in Halloween?
Can I go first? I want to go first because I don't want to interrupt anyone else from this point on. I'm going to go get it out there.
Yeah, go for it.
And so Airfest was fun, but I kind of got stuck on the Bard quest for the master difficulty. Where you have to lure some spectators as a dandelion.
Yeah,
I got stuck there for an hour. I felt like an idiot. So I don't want any event like that that's gonna make a streamer like me look like an idiot. Hopefully, go away from that. And as for Halloween, the most fun I ever had playing The Witcher 3 was the quest in the first expansion, Hearts of Stone. Basically, you need to accompany a ghost. He's a brother of Olgierd. Yes. It was bloody fun. And you guys who played it, you guys know what I'm talking about. So. And you guys do bunch of weird quests for this guy, and this guy cannot enjoy regular stuff because he's a ghost, and he gotta use his Geralt's Boja as a proxy, and he can bloody dance as well, and he impresses Shani and stuff. It was hilarious. So maybe something that can really resurrect the playful nature of Witcher into Halloween would be really, I think, good call.
Yeah, I just for the Vladimir mention, I actually love you. If Vladimir was in the event, I'd be so happy. I love Hearts of Stone. So
that guy should be a leader.
Vladimir should be he should be Olgierd's only a silver though, so they should both be gold cards. They're both awesome. But I would love. I think you're right. I think something that's a bit more tongue in cheek, like the Vladimir quests, would be really fun.
I don't know. I really like that puzzle, man. You didn't like that puzzle?
I just sucked at it, man.
No, I did too. I was stuck on it for an hour. That's the fun.
Surely if you have
I
chat.
just got frustrated.
They should
I look like an idiot in front of my viewers, and I don't want to look like an idiot in front of viewers. So.
Jaggers did it on her first try.
Yeah, I did on first try as well. Trial of the Glasses heroic took me 45 minutes there.
They both did it on their first try.
But then people accuse you of cheating, so you're better to look dumb than look like a cheat. That seems to be how it is. I'm looking forward to a new icon, a new border. I don't know, everyone loves their cosmetics, so this way I can be an accomplished drinker, but with a spooky border. It's gonna be
accomplished spooky.
Spooky boy. Really spooky.
Can we get a skeleton avatar where it's all just the doot doot trumpet for the emotes? It's everyone is just doot. It's
I wanted the voice
a song.
Thank you, Mr. Skeletal. It would be so good. It would be so good. Right. The last thing to talk about is esports. We have Gwentlemen number 2 on the horizon, and Merchant gets to go to Vienna this time.
Yeah, I'll be in Vienna. That'll be fun.
You know, hang out in the ball pit.
I'm gonna go get really hammered in a ball pit. It's gonna be good.
with a bunch of Gwent dudes. It's gonna be the best stream ever. One of those things that you never thought you wanted to see.
You have to do a reincarnated ball pit stream, Merchant.
I will stream from the ball pit. I'll do a ball pit stream. That'll be fun.
So, who do people want to win? Insangpha, who do you want to win?
I kind of cheering for Game King because I really liked his Nilfgaard soldier deck from the first Grand Slam. It was kind of fresh, trying to get the reveal and the spiciness at the same time, and kind of root for him, I guess.
Merchant, who do you want to? Are you allowed to have a Are you allowed to have favorites?
What's my favorite? I like Freddie winning because he's from the UK. But other than that, I would have to say, I would quite like Game King too. Game King's just such an awesome player. He's a really nice guy as well, so Game King would be great. But Adzikov as well is also a lovely dude, so any of those I'd be happy.
Yep.
Who was the invitee?
It's not announced yet.
Ooh, I'm gonna vote for the invitee.
You would rather pick
You're just putting a vote in.
Maybe it's what if it's me? You know. Don't laugh.
I'll give you a spoiler.
I guess confirmed. I definitely cheer for you if you get invited, Jaguars.
There you go.
You have my vote.
There you go. But I don't know who the invitee is, so that's an interesting. I'd quite like to see someone maybe who's new to see one of these people who've come through the qualifiers. Maybe was it like Sintra and Dieu?
Andy Sintra's a really, really good player. He has a solid chance. He's awesome.
Yeah, I think he eliminated me in Challenger qualies, if I remember correctly, way back in the day. Or am I not? I don't know. Yeah, no. In terms of me, I'm gonna be rooting for Freddie.
No, you have to root for Dieu because he knocked you out of the TG the qualifier,
Yeah, but
right?
Freddie knocked me out of the first Gwent Slam, so.
But he's already won one. He's got enough Gwent Slam wins. Like, we don't want the Freddie meta. Come on, guys.
Yeah, well, it's a boring choice, but what do you want from me? That's.
No, that's fine. For Freddie is lovely. It's hard not to vote for him just because he's a genuinely nice guy.
Pure and innocent.
I will see how long that lasts. Anyway, what do we feel about qualifiers? The kind of format that they use this time versus invitees. We obviously had far fewer invitees in that we have one rather than three. You know, we probably won't see Tides of Time this time around. I'm sure the entire Gwent community is very disappointed about that.
Shots fired. I like Tides. Fuck off my boy Tides. He's alright.
I like Tides too, but you know, you gotta cater to the chat. You know.
No, you don't.
You do.
Ah, fuck chat. Everyone in chat. Fuck you. Nah, I think I don't know. I actually, funnily enough, I'm going next week, and I don't know who's invited. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
It's me.
You.
I told you.
That'd be
Could you imagine who it was? And then I just like, hi, merchant. But yeah, I think. What do we think about invitees in general and Gwent Slam and that sort of thing?
It's good that they're cutting back. I mean, it's one of the complaints from the community that there were too many, and you know, some of them seems almost like a little unfit. So.
Yeah, like that swim guy. He got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah,
I just love the word unfit. You've been judged and found unfit.
But yeah, no, I think it's a good step for them. It's a good direction.
Yeah, I would still like to see. I believe in the old school rules of wrestling, where the only person who should be invited is the defending champion. I think everyone else should qualify, but
yeah,
that's like me and my like draconian dream world.
No, so. I mean we're moving towards that. It's closer.
Yeah, I would like to see that at some point. I think in a bigger tournament, you know, if you had like 32 people, then an invite slot would be cool. Invite somebody like Raikou or, you know, maybe like a big Hearthstone name just for the cross-pollination of audience. That's a sensible thing to do. No. But Jagras, you need to be like a 200...
Jagras, yeah. It should be a rule to invite Jagras in every tournament.
That would have to be like a 256,000 person tournament to invite Jagras.
I think he's like a cows meta. You watch out next week. There's going to be cows everywhere. Yeah. Insangpha, how do you feel about invites?
I think it's a good balance for the Grand Slam too. I personally didn't agree with the Tides inclusion in the Grand Slam one, although I like the Tides from the game that shall not be named, basically. And yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
I thought the rule was you had to invite Petrify.
Oh yeah.
That would have been pretty funny.
Though.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Like with that, I feel like that would probably make him more salty rather than less.
What have you invited?
Yeah, because he really wants to compete, and then you're just like, right, I'll go on, then you come, and you come fully in. Like it's kind of like a BM invite in some ways.
BM.
Here's a BM chance to win 10 grand.
Well,
All right.
when the Gwentlemen are making our first 10K live event, we'll send Petrify an invite.
There you go. Well, you can still get one of I guess the only other thing to say about tournaments is kind of what we expect to see from the meta. Do you think there'll be any spicy cow Skellige decks or Baron decks, or do you think it's going to be very
Baron
rigid?
decks banned every game. I think Mill has 100% win rate, even in mirror matches. I think we won't see Restore played once.
No, we'll see it played more than once.
Yeah, and I think the 6th faction will be patched into the game 4 hours before the tournament starts. It will be really good. Yeah.
And I'm gonna vouch for Babion in Skellige. And
Oh yeah.
Babion, I'm not even joking here. Babion could be like a Mano Column for Skellige, because if you just put inflict 1 damage on it, high strength unit, then you can just kill it, and it's a 10 strength gold, and it's a great value. And I'm saying it because I'm having good success with it on stream, and I feel like there's definitely room for more innovation for Skellige. I'm sure everybody is so sick of seeing Skellige. It's like gonna be Restore Skellige all over again, but there's definitely a room to bring Skellige and still be unique on the tournament scene. So
Yeah, I'd expect to
opinion.
see Axeman maybe. Like I know some people ended up doing Axeman pretty successfully at high pro ladder. So we might see some Axeman, because like you got to remember, it's not about consistency, it's about counter picks.
Yeah.
So we're going to see Dagon on like every team, just because Dagon gonna Dagon, and he's gonna Dagon all over the tournament. And so you may actually see some Axeman run so that they can not ban Dagon and target play against him. So
Do you guys know about the Vabjorn Iris interaction?
yeah, I was talking to Les about that before we went live. That's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
why? How does that work?
Who knows, honestly. The interaction basically is if you use Vabjorn's instant kill effect on an Iris that your opponent played on your side of the board, it buffs the wrong board. It buffs your own board. So,
seriously.
yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know how.
Alright, I gotta take advantage of that.
I tried. I sat for like an hour thinking of every possible way you could take advantage of it. It pretty much can't be done. But if the opponent plays Iris and then you damage it and they don't kill it next turn, then you win the game if you have Vabjorn.
Okay.
Wow. You shouldn't tell people about this. Like, we just made a huge mistake.
It's not abusable. It's not actually something you can abuse. Like, trust me, if it was, I wouldn't be saying this. It's
This is something you've already
just a funny
tried, and you're like,
interaction.
it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
exactly. If it was abusable, I would have abused it.
And then we would have beaten Dia in the like
Yeah.
however many hours of qualifiers that you did.
Yeah, swim reverse sweeps with the Iris bug.
So last thing about tournaments, just to quickly mention for chat, is we have a extra special edition of TGO in early November. So at all the other podcasts, talk shows, whatever, where we were like, stay tuned for TGO October. Yeah, pretend like that never happened.
Well, the last
TGO November.
So for October, technically.
I mean, yeah, we did have a TGO in October. TGO September took place in October.
exactly.
TGO October is, don't know. We have like an early November one, basically, to celebrate the new season of Gwent, because we decided that this season is boring and we don't want to have a tournament.
We had both September and October. They were only one day each.
That's more or less the thing. So an early meta TGO next November. Keep an eye out for that. And the last thing that we have time for is viewer questions. So if you want to ask any questions to Insangpha or Merchant, or I guess myself or Swim, but you know, mostly those guys, at Gwentlemen in the chat. And while we're doing that, Insangpha, if people want to catch you playing Gwent, where can they find you?
I run Twitch at Twitch TV at Insangpha, and I go on stream every day. So, and I don't know what time it is in the CEST or something like that. I go by EDT, and I think my EDT is like a 10 p.m. EDT to like 5 to 6 hours from there, and yeah, so you guys can catch me up then. And I'm gonna be. I'm running YouTube channel as of right now, but there's not much content, new contents on it. But I'm gonna expand on it. I'm gonna be running Twitter pretty soon, so gonna let you guys know once I get that done. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, and Merchant, can you go and shamelessly self-promote yourself? Because God
Shamelessly
knows you
self-promote
need
myself. All right, I'm on YouTube at Merchant.
You got your new
All
handle.
right.
This is great.
I changed my Twitch name. I'm now twitch.tv/merchant.
Oh,
I feel
seriously?
like, I spoke to Twitch. I managed to get Merchant. Apparently, the guy made it on like day one of Justin TV and then like never logged into it again. So like, yeah, sure, you can have it. I'm twitch.tv/merchant now.
I wonder if I can get swim.
He just doesn't like
maybe.
RuneScape that much.
Honestly, dude, it took me like 8 minutes or so. It was like a ridiculously fast turnaround time to get mine changed. Like they replied like instantly. It was amazing.
Yeah, but then I'm not gonna be
nice service.
swim stream.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm around. Twitter's the best way to talk to me if you want to tell me how much you hate me or ask me questions that are completely unrelated to Gwent. It's at col_merchant. That's about it. There you go.
There you go. So that's all of the shameless self-promotion done. Do we have some questions? Obviously, like, feel free to pick questions out of chat.
Okay, here's one. Can Merchant say Johnny's line as seriously as possible? Peter Piper picked, etc.
Oh, what?
I can make it my text tone.
It's not that hard though, is it? It's like, what is it? Peter Piper picked Prince Proximo a peck of pickled peppers by the ponta. There you
By
go.
the park.
Oh.
Almost
so
did it.
close.
That's actually a card that I never run. I never run Johnny.
You should play Carol Skelliger. He's great in that.
No, I tend to play Sarah almost always instead.
So that you can get your own silver instead of your opponent's roach. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Although sometimes you get Iris, which is good fun.
The only time I play Johnny, I tend to get my opponent's Johnny, and then I'm just like, thanks.
Because everyone wants their own Johnny and not their opponent's Johnny.
Exactly. I'll have two Johnnies, I guess. Makes it safer.
Pretty sure that's not wise. Friction is a thing. Anyway, moving on. For Insangpha, how did you get the drawing of Gerald behind you? It actually says Gerald. I just
This?
do it to annoy you.
What's this behind me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the World of the Witcher, and this was translated to Korean and published, and I just got it firsthand. So
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
wow.
yeah, you guys can get it from like Amazon or like that. Okay, I'm not being giving
Ads.
money by CDPR to promote something like that. I'm just doing this because you guys asked me what this is, and I also got my Witcher collection right here. Just bit of show up on the PlayStation 4, nevertheless. The frame rate sucked, but my PC wasn't really bad at the time, so I had no choice but to play this on PlayStation 4. It was a fun time. Yeah.
I like how you guys have cool stuff, like a framed picture of a mirror. Is that a mirror? I think it's a mirror.
It is a mirror, yeah, it is a mirror.
And then like this cool Witcher book, and then Swim has a microwave.
No, I've got
a
two.
bed and a mirror. Why do you have two microwaves?
I'm
'Cause
a-
sometimes
One for
one
the
microwave's
cat.
not enough.
What for the cat did you just...
Let's get Marco the cat food right there, man.
It's his Witcher branded microwave. Oh man, you can read us a bedtime story out of your World of the Witcher book. There we go. This is how we end the stream. Who will win in a fight? 1,000 hummingbirds with fangs or 1,000 giraffes with fangs? Oh,
Probably
giraffes,
hummingbirds.
obviously. No way!
Are you fucking
Definitely
stupid?
giraffes.
No,
Hummingbirds?
Look,
Are you-
right, giraffe. No, look, giraffe is up here, right? And it's
Yeah, there's
like,
1,000 of them.
ah! But a hummingbird, there's 1,000 of them, so they get 360 coverage, and they're just gonna swarm like mosquitoes and bite the shit out of everything. I've
But they'll
thought
be
about
front
this.
heavy, so they won't be able to
I
fly.
thought about this.
No, they're like obviously they're adapted to having fangs.
You didn't say that. They could just have fangs. I think if like a giraffe randomly had fangs, it'd be pretty okay.
Have you seen
right?
how
But, like,
useless giraffes are? If I fought a giraffe, I'd just punch it in the neck. If I fought a hummingbird,
it
I'd
would
be
just-
fucked. Have you seen how fast hummingbirds are?
Yeah, but have you seen giraffes fighting? Like when they beat their
Yeah, they
necks
swing
against
their
each
necks at each other, and what
yeah,
does
so
that?
you punch it in the neck, nothing will happen.
Exactly.
They'll just be like, "Lol, mate, your
You
neck
clearly
shit,"
have a
and, like,
very
kill
weak
you.
grasp of physics because it swings its neck down. It's moving like this. I punch it in the face. Bam! Physics. It goes flying. Hummingbirds, however, that's like fighting a golden snitch. That's impossible. And if there's 1,000 of them, you're fucked. Like, honestly, if there was 1,000 hummingbirds come after me, even without fangs, I'd just be like, "You got
Well,
me."
you had a good life.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
over.
and somebody asked me on the chat what is my favorite premium card, and my favorite premium card is Stefan from Nilfgaard. Yeah, kind of really identify with that card because I used to run promo guard. I used to run
Oh.
promo guard everywhere,
Oh.
and yeah, I had a hell of a connection with Stefan. So my favorite premium card for me.
I miss that deck.
I'm still bothered by this hummingbird thing.
There were 2 people in the world who missed that deck.
Yeah, and they're both on this talk show.
No, and I did it after the nerf to the enforcers. So there's that. I didn't do it when the spell Nilfgaard was popular.
People are asking such dumb questions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what's the cutout for the
Oh,
pro ladder
okay.
this month? I know this one. You have to be 500 plus to get into the pro ladder. If you're inactive on the pro ladder, you get kicked. So you have to have played at least 10 games, at which point you then have to be in the top 90%. And having played 10 games literally today, I can tell you that there are, I wrote it down somewhere. This just says Lurt Smells, so this is very helpful.
What smells?
6,225 players. I was ranked 6,225 having played 10 games. So then you need to be roughly in the top like 5,300, at which point you will be safe. Or if you hit 4,500 MMR, you'll go up into the pro ladder. But I don't know what happens if you get 4,500 MMR and are already in the pro ladder, but don't get top 90%, whether you go up or down. I don't know how that works. So there's your information. Done. I'm helpful.
But does Lurt smell?
Well, clearly, if you don't see the sign.
I mean, it's written down.
I mean,
That's
somebody in the
evidence.
US
Lord
confirmed that.
Phil.
Right? I mean, your merchant though, we are not gonna do it, so you're too far away.
Who has the warmest embrace, Shiru or Vilgefortz?
They're asking the real questions here.
Probably Vilgefortz. He looks quite tender. If you look at how he's holding Regis's head, like, I like that. I feel like if a man held me, yeah, I feel like if a big burly man like Vilgefortz held me like that, I would just feel safe, and then he'd set me on fire. So it wouldn't
You'd
last
be warm
long.
for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think Insangpha? Vilgefortz or Shiru?
Oh my god. We're actually going around.
Okay, I'll go with Shiru because Shiru can set multiple units on fire, right? Because it's Scorch. So
That's true.
can be more warmer than Blizzard ports. I'll
can
buy
burn
it
That's true.
to-
Can
But
he burn
Vilgefortz-
horses efficiently?
Vilgefortz can pull Scorch.
But Vilgefortz can also burn horses with 100% efficiency. So
Yeah, you have to be pretty warm to do that.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
warm roach right there. Warm roast meat.
See, I feel like it is Vilgefortz because sometimes, well, I don't know, because sometimes Shiru's embrace is so warm he burns himself. Because apparently having a 10 strength card that makes a scorch just seemed like a great design decision.
That's true. That's
And
true.
as someone relatively short, I don't have to be worried about getting burned by Shiru because he'll just burn himself. Whereas I think Vilgefortz maybe is the warmer embrace. There we go.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put my vote in for Vilgefortz. So 3 out of 4 Vilgefortz. It looks like Vilgefortz is the winner.
Warmest Embrace 2017.
Oh.
There you go. See, we're answering the important questions that chat needs to know the answer to. Best grill, Naneki or Sigurdrifa? Shani.
Naneke has absolutely whopping great tats, so I'll say Naneke. That's my
There
only
you
I'm
go.
actually gonna go with Sigdrifa.
Any reason or just
No.
Sigurdrifa?
Well, she seems to have great fashion sense.
But you see, when I shave, I look like the guy in the Naneki card art. So I have that on my side.
Oh, so you have an easier
Like, if I
time
kinda go-
imagining putting yourself in the scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm already
I
in
got you. Makes sense.
I'm
It's in
I'm gonna go with the Sigdrifa because then I can approach Priestess of Freya. So
Nice.
Oh,
Good
Ghost
choice.
approach.
Good
Yeah.
choice. Yeah.
But here's the thing. But with Merchant, you kind of look like Greatsword though, and Sigdrifa can be used on Greatsword.
Do I
That-
look like Greatsword?
I don't know. I heard someone say that on Reddit once.
Everybody says that I look like Tridam Infantry.
Oh.
If I kind of look angry towards the camera, like I'm like Tridam Infantry.
Right. Well, I think the questions have degenerated enough.
Yeah, that's
Maybe just draw a line under this. The only last question: can we talk about growth? I guess the growth of Gwent. Is Reddit representative of the people that play? I mean, technically, the people on Reddit do play.
It's not
So they-
representative, but it is indicative, which is
people on
slightly
Reddit play Gwen. Could have fooled me.
different.
They do.
Oh,
Did you not know?
that
Yeah.
tickled me. That did. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Can't outdo that.
And growth of the game.
It's
What's the
it's like
game?
it is an indicator, but it's not the be all and end all. But like when that indicator is pointing in the same direction on every platform you can check, it's fairly self-explanatory. But there's all sorts of like explanations, like content cycles and stuff. So it's a very complex issue.
Insangpha, anything to say about the growth of Gwent and Reddit?
Growth of Gwent and Reddit. I kind of got flagged for self-promoting on Reddit once, so I don't even know if I should say anything about Reddit Gwent. But I say this. I like the community in Reddit. Most of them are open and they're open to new ideas and to discussion. And sometimes it gets kind of, I don't know what to say, but other than those times, I think on average, it's a really good platform, and I think it's a good sign of the health for Gwent growing, because we have a sizable Reddit community. Yeah.
And they like your free-to-play guide. There was a little discussion.
Oh
about that,
yeah.
Which you
Yeah.
can find on the Gwentlemen website. I'm so good at
Thanks.
this. Well, I guess the only thing I have to say about Reddit is, in the meantime, while we were having this discussion, I've made a Reddit post, which you can see here, showing my current MMR and how sad it is. And we know this is a Photoshop post, because obviously I wouldn't have 4499 MMR. That's not really believable. But anyway, there is a top quality Reddit post, and I guess that sums up the Gwent Reddit more or less. Everyone happy?
Oh no, I'm very happy.
No, you're very happy. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Wait.
But I said, is everyone happy? No, I'm very happy.
Well,
So if you're
I
happy,
say
you're very
no. I
happy.
say yeah, exactly. I say no when I don't really mean it.
And this is why consent is an issue. Anyway,
Oh
moving
my god! Jesus Christ!
And on that note, thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a fantastic evening. And shout outs to Guy with Beard and Laughing My Ass Off Deathwish for coming on the show, because that's what it says here. No, I've been Thing 2. That's Thing 1. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Screen not coming off.
Any moment now.
Like and
You have to have
subscribe.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And thanks to all the Koreans who are watching me at the 7 a.m.